Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 35th audio file in the audiocast series known as the Q News Patriot. I'm the Q News Patriot. My name is SGAnon. It is good to be with you again, a little bit more quickly this time. I think we can anticipate this pattern of sort of some really rapid D-class things worth talking about to continue as we go forward. We are 11 days now into the year 2023. The year of the water rabbit in Asian culture, the Chinese Zodiac New Year. The last water rabbit year was 1963, the year that President John F. Kennedy was unfortunately taken from the world as he attempted to, or as he did begin the process that Donald J. Trump and the United States military, along with a worldwide alliance, are now finishing. This year will be the year of the rabbit hole, in my opinion. This year will be the year of intense, unpleasant, very personal levels of discovery for all of you out there, and most especially for the masses who still believe that the world is primarily good, although crazy, and that things are predominantly okay, even though that they are pinched at the moment. As we go through this process to break the brainwashing, to break the generational ideas of how money should flow, who should be questioned and not questioned in government positions of power and authority, how finance and banking should be conducted. As we highlight to the masses the disparity between we, the people of the world, and the elected classes, not only here in the United States, but in all countries, in all nations around the world, any nation that has a central bank. It's going to become a very, I believe, dramatic time. We are witnessing the fall of a multi-thousand-year-old power structure that has sought to not only control the earth and enslave the earth, but have a sort of totality of control over all things occurring on the earth and in the natural world that sort of flies in the face of the Almighty. Which, you know, if you think about it, that is how these individuals operate. They wish to defame the idea of God. They wish to defame the idea of the Creator, the infinite love that sustains us all. They wish to disparage names like Jesus the Christ. They wish to obfuscate and destroy our understanding of how just who we are spiritually. They have controlled levers of power to include the printing presses, academia, a great deal of literature that has been passed through the ages. They have sort of snuffed out different or hidden different areas of human knowledge. We know that beneath the Vatican, in the deep underground tunnels and the vaults, they had texts as ancient as scrolls from the library at Alexandria. Enormous, incredible amounts of our history, of information, contextually appropriate and important, detailed information about our Earth, who we are, how this all came to be, and what our capabilities really are. This is what they've sought to control and keep from us. And they've done a very good job. But unfortunately, that time is, or fortunately for us, but unfortunately for them, that time is now over. This is going to be a very fun ride. It's going to be an upsetting and difficult ride at some points. It's going to excite and simultaneously frighten many of you out there. So it's important to remember that as we go through the process where we are placed in an actual under fire situation, an actual active, an actively developing situation, cool heads prevail at all times. One of the lessons, one of the core lessons that we are all learning on this journey is that our emotions help to inform our experience, but our emotions are often not a good place to begin with decision making, conclusion forming. We should use them along with our other sensible faculties, our rationale, our ability to discern a character, our ability to tune into that peaceful place, which will help to highlight to us any sorts of disparities in our spiritual apparatus as it pertains to interacting with other people or other places. Um, these are the faculties that we must learn how to interpret again. We must learn that we have them, that they speak to us in ways that we must understand, or excuse me, that we must relearn how to understand, um, ways that are not necessarily emotional in nature, though they may very well evoke emotional responses. Going through this process is about, in my estimation, just in my personal opinion, rediscovering who we are. It's about rediscovering what mankind really is with knowledge that has been kept from us for thousands of years. The ancients knew in a very big way the true nature of our earth, the true nature of ourselves, and the true nature of the power structures that were very effective at wiping a number of them out over the ages. So as we go through this year, it is important to reflect on where we've come from, and where we're going. It is truly humbling. Getting down to some current events, I reported recently that we could expect to see things going on in the cyberspace area. Discussed the Cyber Polygon exercise a couple of different times. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight because we are now seeing evidence of those sorts of operations being conducted both from the white hat and black hat side. We're going to talk a little bit about how that ties into the events actually of today. The Federal Aviation Administration losing the ability to control and direct air traffic. That was a white hat operation, not a black hat operation, but it certainly provides a very good optical lens to blame the black hats for confusion, delay, things that are upsetting to a number of people. So let's get right down to it. What is the Cyber Polygon tabletop exercise? Well, the Cyber Polygon tabletop exercise is essentially Event 201, except instead of a pathogenic pandemic, this would be a cyberspace pandemic, a great cyberspace attack. The Cyber Polygon tabletop exercise is designed to simulate a new crisis of even more significant economic and social implications than COVID-19. Jeremy Jurgens, the WEF managing director in 2020, made the statement, "I believe that there will be another crisis. It will be more significant. It will be faster than what we've seen with COVID. The impact will be greater, and as a result, the economic and social implications could be even more significant." In this same video, which you can actually find on YouTube, looks like the video was published November the 17th of 2020. There's that 17 again. The title of the video, called Cyber Polygon July 2020 Tabletop Exercise WEF, Here Comes the Next Crisis. And then it says it's an excerpt from that. Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, the managing director, other influential financial individuals, all for this particular exercise, participated in this particular exercise. Now, this exercise is designed to simulate a nation-state attack on critical cyber infrastructure in all areas of the world. In other words, critical cyber infrastructure being the electronic apparatus that makes things like your cell phone work, that allows things like heart monitors to work effectively and life support systems to function optimally. Things like the power grid, which is primarily controlled, electronically. The ability to move certain resources, the ability to, control and direct things like logistical transport. if we were to see a cyber attack of any large scale, um, perhaps through the Bill Gates Windows operating system, which would be a very good sort of avenue into most of the critical electronic infrastructure in the world, we could have a very very dangerous situation come very quickly. Fuel pumps in certain newer stations over the last few years, I believe it's over the last decade or so, primarily electronically controlled. Um, those pumping systems would be affected by such an attack. Same with hospital systems, financial systems, and banking, telecom, communication systems, and certainly the internet. Um, it would be a very intense time. It would be a very intense event to go through, and um, it would sort of shatter, if you will, the idea in the normie's mind that things are business as usual, despite being unpleasant at the gas pump and unpleasant in the taxes taken out of their checks. I do believe that we will see something along these lines. I do believe that we're going to see some escalation in the cyberspace. It's possible that we see that tied into a second pandemic narrative. We've seen some stuff in the narrative space regarding that preparation. Whether we see that actually attempted or not is anyone's guess. I reported not long ago about Operation Dark Winter. We discussed a little bit about how that particular operation was designed to simulate a very serious pathogenic attack on the world. And we've seen simulations of that sort of a scenario playing out just recently. Actually, I believe it was just last year in Europe and in the African space. You know, this year will be the year of desperation moves, right? This year will be the year where they will lose the literal levers of control in the public space. That has actually already begun. We saw with the Speaker McCarthy vote, the appointment of the speakership to the House of Representatives, we witnessed on full display for the public to see a visual process of the people reclaiming power in the chamber. I believe this was orchestrated. I believe Q called this actually to the day on a 5-year delta, discussing that we had a win. The number 15 was in brackets, discussed it was a good win. And we know during this voting process, we had very strong hints that there were other factors outside of the sort of the voting process and discussions that were influencing what was happening. We know Donald Trump's name was involved in the speakership discussion. He was nominated by Representative Gates. We know that Marjorie Taylor Greene was on the phone with an individual with the initials DT. You know, and one of the very first acts as Speaker that Mr. McCarthy has taken is to remove Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, and others from certain committees and certain access to information that sort of these individuals should be the last ones to access. So that tells me that Mr. McCarthy is doing our bidding. I believe that this is symbolic in the sense that we're going to see another era of McCarthyism, except these McCarthyistic investigations will target the deep state themselves. They will not be used as sort of a scapegoat to cover the deep state's tracks and to railroad, not necessarily innocent people, but certainly to exaggerate criminality and generate enough public fervor to keep the masses mind controlled and retain their power. And that was exactly what the first era of McCarthyism was all about. So I believe that we're seeing sort of a symbolic turning of the tables, if you will, in that regard. And we're going to have McCarthyistic investigations to show the deep state for exactly what they are. The intelligence community is no longer safe. In 2016, this deep state apparatus, this worldwide cabal, lost control of the presidency of the United States of America, an office that they had controlled nearly continuously since the death of John F. Kennedy. A short period of Ronald Reagan attempting to return the United States to what it should be, but he was quickly brought into line. Reagan himself, not a perfect individual, somewhat involved in the pedophilia aspect of all of this, but more against his will, more of the ilk of being bribed and blackmailed as a part of his position in things. Outside of that short period of time in the early 80s, this has been a near continuous control for the cabal in the presidency of the United States until Donald J. Trump. We have now witnessed earlier this month the beginning of the loss of control, permanent loss of control of this deep state cabal from the U.S. House of Representatives, or excuse me, from the U.S. Congress, beginning with the U.S. House of Representatives. The People's Chamber will do the people's work from here on. How we see that play out, what we see play out, the process by which that happens is going to be very exciting. I believe we're going to see serious exposure in the intelligence community pertaining to the COVID-19 narrative. I believe that we're going to see some very upsetting for the normies, but very expected information from the awake patriots and anons out there presented to the normies through governmental investigations pertaining to COVID-19 and the kill shots. This is the time for them where the clock is sort of ticking down in those last few seconds. We're going to come back here to the Cyber Polygon exercise. In 2020, the central theme for the Cyber Polygon live stream was the prevention of a digital pandemic, how to prevent a crisis and reinforce cybersecurity. The incessant MSM, this is a comment thread I'm reading from, the incessant MSM warnings of cyber crimes proliferating during the lockdowns, and every time I get into banking, predictive programming, preparing us for the dark winter, certainly seems like a cyber attack of sufficient scale would end any resistance in the average individual to the idea that things are not as they seem. Could you imagine having to deal with a period of time that you couldn't access power, food, internet, or money? These are very interesting postulations by this individual. And this sort of ties back into this conversation of 2020. We're gonna tie off of this the Polygon exercise here, so I stay on message. But this is about the deep state having to deploy sort of their most desperate moves. They have a history of launching the traumatizing things onto the peoples of the world at the moment where power is going to be lost forever. President Kennedy was taking very actionable steps to affect power and control in the world, and he was snuffed out in a very traumatic way that caused an enormous amount of fear, uncertainty, trauma, etc. in the population, both of the United States and of the world. 9/11/01, sort of the same idea, and the various wars that we've had popping off both since then and in the late 60s to early 90s have all sort of been to varying degrees traumatizing in order to maintain control and also to continue to reshape the power structures on the earth as they needed to have so that they could attempt to launch this extermination agenda. So as we go through this year, excuse me, things like the Cyber Polygon exercise, I think that we're going to see much more of that. We know that we have to drain this petrodollar. We know that the consumption of energy, the payment for energy worldwide for a long time in nearly every place has been through the US dollar. Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, leading us away from that system, if you will, beginning a new economic alliance. One of the effects, that has is that the petrodollar is no longer as formidable as it always has been. And without the consistent, very large, very broad supply of money, this apparatus, these Five Eyes intelligence communities, and the capabilities that they have left at their disposal worldwide, which are being whittled down daily, it's simply less and less the less money that they have. The more that we choke them off, however, the more that we have to accept that we are in the ground floor of a building that we are attempting to implode around us. We're doing so in what I believe to be the most deliberate, most careful way possible. But at the same time, it's worth noting that there is suffering that comes from that process, and that suffering may get a little bit worse before it gets better. As a matter of fact, I believe it will. We're witnessing the end of a dynasty of evil. We're witnessing the end of not only an era in the sense of the last 20 to 30 years here in the United States, but an era of hidden tyranny for mankind. We have to be able to endure the process of bringing that down so that we can rebuild the future in the way that we would like for it to be. Things like how we interact in the commerce sector, how we interact with the financial world, how we interact with our energy, not only our spiritual energy, but our resources, our energetic resources, how we harness energy going forward. These are going to be very, very significant, sort of points to figure out. And in order to arrive at those points, we have to remove the obstacles that prevent us from rolling those, or excuse me, designing those ideas and implementing them. And unfortunately, we have an old system that is in the way. So, that being said, I guess it's a good time to talk a little bit about some of the societal levers that are being overhauled. I'm sure many of you saw the fire that broke out at the water treatment facility in Illinois, USA, a very large blaze that was not by accident. It's my belief, based on some of the stuff that I've been reading, that it's one of several instances that has occurred in the last few weeks here in the US pertaining to water plants or plants that manufacture water purification chemicals being experiencing difficulties like fires, plant shutdowns, bomb threats, things of that nature. And it appears that in the very deep recesses of, the levers of our society that control things like our access to public and potable water, our access to the power grid, our access to the food supply chains, all of these are being sort of converted, if they can be converted, and the really bad ones, the inconvertible ones, are being completely destroyed. I believe we have more than 37 now, or 39 different food manufacturing facilities here in the United States of America just in the last 18 months that have been taken down. That's the average, or excuse me, that's an average of 2 a month. Preserving the food supply, preserving supply chains, preserving access to logistical chains needed to keep the marketplaces functional and preserve the national essential functions that we have to preserve in a continuity of government situation is an unbelievably delicate and sensitive process. At the same time, we cannot go through this process and not cleanse these areas. These areas, food, water, air, what we breathe, our sky, chemical warfare at the sort of a slow burn, soft kill level, all of that has to be dealt with. If you go and you get a glass of water from your tap, it contains numerous heavy metals, chlorine, sodium, mercury, fluoride, which is a known neurotoxin. It contains a number of possible parasites. It may contain high levels of lead. Our lifespans are affected over time with these. We're equipped with incredible bodies, and we have unbelievably resilient physical apparatuses that sort of play off of our spiritual apparatus, if you will. But over time, even that resiliency can be eroded when the food we consume is devoid of nutrition, and the water that we're consuming on a regular basis is leached with poisonous chemicals, metals, and things that our human body just does not process well and is not designed to process. And so these create health conditions, they shorten lifespans, and we must change this. This is one of those facets of this operation that has taken a long time, because we cannot sort of crash these systems all at once. We would have total pandemonium. Speaking of pandemonium, today we saw the cyber attack that I referenced earlier with the FAA's grounding. It's my belief, based on some of the stuff that I've been seeing, and that is occurring elsewhere in the world, um, that this is a alliance operation. Today, I had multiple images, um, several different articles sent to me, a couple of videos emailed to me showing U.S. Air Force fighter jets all up and down the eastern seaboard, all throughout the American West Coast and across the southern border, and even in the region of Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, the central northern parts of the United States. Much of that, I believe, may have been off radar. I didn't get a chance to check the flight radar, but it would make sense because I did not see many pictures today circulating of active fighter jets in the air. But I got hard copy images sent to me of exactly that. Tying that together with the grounding of all domestic flights leads me to believe that we are witnessing, or maybe we lived through, a search and capture operation. Being able to prevent escaping from this particular continent. Fighter jets are sort of air superiority endpoints. They are the big stick that you get out when all else has failed as it pertains to cooperation and compliance in an airborne situation. And so, with all flights having a grounding order, anyone who attempted to escape would be very quickly identified, and those aircraft would be either forced to return to the ground and land, or they would be shot down. Um, this is a momentous time, but it is worth noting that it is still a serious war that we're living. The identification of espionage networks and traitors, the identification of um, combatant assets versus civilian assets that are sort of being duped into playing a dual role. This is a very sensitive time that we're all living. Today's events, I expect to continue in similar fashion in other areas, particularly in Europe, um, Western and Southwestern Europe. And we're actually already seeing, as of about an hour ago, these same sorts of interruptions happening in the Canadian air traffic control space as well, forcing Canadian aircraft to be on the ground for a limited period of time. As we sit back and we watch the destruction of this system happen before us, we're going to see more and more, I believe, notable instances where the awakened patriots, the really good Anons out there, and especially the ones that have any sort of longevity in this understanding of the nature of our world, we're going to see things that are very exciting for us. But it will be very scary for many of our normies and sleepers who, again, are perfectly fine people, but are just very heavily brainwashed. The onus will be on you, each of you, to respond to them with the most love possible, while also firmly reiterating that that we must think for ourselves, that we must look between the lines, that we must break out of this idea that just because our belief systems tell us a particular truism, that may or may not be the actual truth. Many years ago, I was asked not what I believed, but why I believed it. And it took me some time to actually formulate a correct answer, because I realized so much of what I had been taught, so much of what I had learned throughout my daily walk, my understandings about the nature of life, the nature of the earth, the nature of myself, and other things, were more reflexive rather than conscious appreciations of what I am, and what we all are. And so it's worth noting that, as we go through this process, those normies, those sleeper family, friends, and loved ones of yours will begin having a bit of an existential crisis, a bit of an identity crisis going through this, because they're going to have to learn, not only were they wrong, but they were very, very wrong. and they're going to have to come to grips with very harsh realities in what I believe is going to be a comparably short amount of time. Over the last 6 years, 7 years, we have seen awakening beginning in this world that has never been seen before. The Q military intelligence drops being a significant aspect of that, but by no means the only aspect. Um, there are other individuals going back as early as year 2000 that discuss the nature of the quantum reality that we all exist within and through and part of, even in our day-to-day, physical walk, even as you listen to this broadcast now. The resonance that you may hear in my voice is a function of this sort of spiritual matrix that we all live in. Your ability to resonate or not resonate, to absorb or not absorb, to mesh or not mesh with the things that I'm saying to you in the manner and the tonality that it's being said, it allows you to sort of discern things that are indiscernible in any other fashion. We're all going to be learning how to do that very soon. We've seen we've seen an incredible amount of that over the last 6 to 7 years, and it's only going to get that much more impressive. Q tells us over 90%, 9 in 10 people will be on board, sort of on mission with similar ideals as it pertains to the big things, the trafficking and killing of children, for example, the usage of abortion as sort of an end rather than sort of an endpoint strategy rather than an emergency situation. We're going to have common understandings about financial corruption and evil, and we will be banded together in, I think, the majority parts. We will always have disagreements. There will always be a sort of different perspectives being offered by all people. But at the end of the day, we are going to have a commonality with one another, certainly a commonality of shared suffering as a we the peoples of the world that we've never known before, but it will catapult us into an era that will reverberate through, I believe, the centuries. Mankind has been repressed, but we will be repressed no more. It is rapidly coming upon the time to witness, I believe, the true destruction, the full public destruction of this apparatus. And as we go through that, I implore each of you to, remain calm as best you can, to prepare as best you can, to be intelligent about your decisions pertaining to your survivable resources, food, water, medicine, things of that nature, fuel. Be diligent in your preparation, but don't prepare for anything out of fear. Prepare in the same way that you would prepare for rougher weather. We don't look at things like storm cells or systems that are moving into our area and respond totally out of fear. We respond out of a confidence and preparation, but an understanding that Mother Nature is going to unleash certain powers that we sort of are along for the ride with, and that is going to be, I believe, the situation here. It's going to be very enjoyable. I am very excited for all of you out there as we go through this year. Really fast, we're going to close off this segment with some discussion about South America and Saudi Arabia. We are seeing a remarkable situation in Brazil where the illegal Brazilian government has the backing of a number of the forward-facing governments of the free world, what we would like to believe are the free world. But we know that these governments are installations that have happened over the last 4 years. We've actually witnessed it occurring. We've been awakened to the election fraud as a we the people around the world, and we are very unhappy with it. Brazil is becoming, or is rapidly becoming, a competition ground for control of the geopolitics in South America. It has destabilized the region. and it has certainly helped to highlight who in the South American governmental structures in various nations in South America, who is actually on our side and who is not willing to let that rubber meet the road when the chips are down. We have a situation going on where Brazil is seeing its own January 6th. This is bigger than just the country of Brazil. My heart goes with all of the protesters and individuals being completely oppressed at this point in time by this illegal Lula government, this installation, this communist dictatorship. And that's exactly what it is, despite the gossying up of the electoral system. It is a dictatorship in similar fashion to the United States of America being as essentially as close to a dictatorship under Biden as it has maybe ever been. But the geopolitics in Brazil are influencing some very serious exposure operations on the South American continent. A number of sleeper cells and espionage networks, both in government and in non-governmental organizations, have activated themselves and have shown themselves for who they are, and by virtue of that are showing their connectivity to other areas of this worldwide mafia that need to be dealt with. I believe we're seeing that occurring with these military operations. I recently posted a number of pictures with various militaries in and out of the United States, various United States military aircraft all around the world. And one of the militaries leaving actually the US state of Delaware recently, very interesting state. I encourage each of you to go look up the significance of Delaware as it pertains to the corporate cabal that took over the United States of America. For the Saudi Arabian military to be there, they must have had a very good reason. And this flight departed Delaware, USA in the middle of the night. It's very interesting then that just a few days back, we saw Crown Prince bin Salman discussing geopolitics as it pertained to the Middle Eastern situation. Crown Prince mentioned Iran. Iran and China, I believe, to some extent, and Saudi Arabia aligned on mission with, or I should say, the Patriots in these countries aligned on mission with dethroning the cabal. It's my belief that we're going to see much more out of Saudi Arabia and much more out of South America as this process goes forward over these next 4 to 5 weeks. And that sometime in the first half of this year, we're actually going to see some of that cooperation extend into other nations in the Middle East, Syria, Turkey, possibly Afghanistan, with the Taliban government there. And we know that we're sort of working this up towards a symbolic Armageddon-style conflict. You know, it's very interesting. I don't opine a whole lot on what exactly various holy books say, or what the good book says in the chapters of Revelation. But it is worth noting that that particular book was primarily a prophecy for the cabal, for the world of the cabal. It's not the end of the world, it's the end of the cabal's world. The wars, the rumors of wars, various world scenarios described in that book. I believe that we're seeing a number of that come to pass now. It makes a lot of sense when you consider that ancestrally, the areas of the world that are the hardest to cleanse are those areas that are sort of the final targets in the great battle. This power structure goes back many thousands of years. They go back to the literal days that the texts of the Old Testament and other holy books were being recorded and written. This is a longitudinal, symbolic battle that we're all a part of. And seeing the cooperation between nations economically, then militarily, and eventually financially is helping to, I think, highlight for a number of us out there just how significant these world events really are. Now, of course, we take that lens and we apply that lens to the literal understanding that we are cleaning out unbelievable evil. Um, Tunnels are continuing to be destroyed all throughout the European continent and the North American continent. Um, I am confident in saying to each of you now that the United States Marine Corps was involved in some sort of operations in the Gulf Shores, Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi areas, and that we did have some tunnel flooding caused in the southwestern areas of Louisiana, right off of the Gulf of Mexico. That was just within these last couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So as we are going along, we're seeing physical evidence of this spiritual war that we're all living. It's truly an incredible time to be alive. And I very much hope that each of you sort of gets the significance of that as you listen to this file and other broadcasts and really absorb that into your just your reflections on life and your reflections on things that are happening right now. This is a very exciting time. It may be a tough time, but it is a very exciting time. And with that, I'm going to kind of lead into my little closing announcement that I believe many of you will enjoy tremendously. For quite a while, it has been heavy on my heart to bring to all of you the greatest amount of calm and clarity that I'm able to sort of muster up. It's been a long journey for me. Many of you out there have been awake many years more than I have, 20, 30, 40, some of you even 50 years. You're to be commended. That I can't imagine just what I've experienced in the last 12 to 13 years has been extremely difficult for me at points along the way. Having the awarenesses that I've had, but understanding that, even voicing some of those in the wrong circles could result in serious retribution and retaliation against me and against people I care about. It's a stress that's unusual, and is certainly one that I think we were all prepared for and chosen to handle. When I began this journey anonymously to accomplish a number of things. First and foremost was to safeguard the safety and security of those dearest to me. Another angle on maintaining my anonymity has been to sort of prevent the deep state financial machine from infiltrating into my life in a way that was too tempting or would not have allowed for the sort of freedom of information that I believe all of you are entitled to and all of you need to have. A third angle on my anonymity is that by working over this deep state apparatus without needing to gain from it, it sort of encourages the vibration of love and confidence that maybe vibration is not the right word, just that intentionality within those who hear these broadcasts to go to dive deep into their curiosity and to close down that fear programming. And at the same time, symbolically, it does help to drive some fear to those deep state assets who I'm very well aware listen to this broadcast and others like it. And all of that being said, I have decided that by the end of this month, each of you will see my face, but you will not know my name. My name is actually SG. Those are my actual initials. But I am satisfactorily convinced after a deep amount of prayer, supplication, getting into that quiet meditative space, that it is important moving forward into these final phases that you are able to identify with me as a living man, as a living person, one who has an energy that can be emitted through the eyes that can be a countenance that can be sort of witnessed and felt through that realization of looking into another sentient being. And so that being said, um, we're witnessing a point where this deep state has essentially has their hands full. Um, a number of them in the United States of America have been put into submission, and we are seeing the cleanup of that around the world, the reverberative effects of that around the world, really beginning to accelerate. I believe that we have crossed into a time where my safety and the safety of my family is no longer imminently in jeopardy and will not be put in jeopardy as a result of some of the content that I share, which many of you are aware is very fringe. It is, I am sort of not known for shying away. There is an impressive and incredible amount of truth that has been stolen, erased, or obfuscated for mankind. And one of the things I try to do is bring clarity to that, sometimes in some very significant fashions. And so while that has been a concern of mine through this process, I am satisfactorily convinced that we are entering into a time period where this deep state will not be able to generate the same level, or will not be as capable of generating harm for myself and my family and others, people that I care about, as they have always been. So I know that many of you have waited a long time to hear that announcement. A number of you out there who disagree very vehemently with the things that I say and do. A number of you out there who have expended a great deal of time and energy into various opinion op-eds, if you will, on my identity, on who I may or may not be, on whether or not my information is to be respected or not. Many of you are going to be surprised. And I believe some of you may be a bit embarrassed. This is sort of not a game that we're playing. My decision to be anonymous up until this point and continuing until a point later this month, it was not a light decision. As an individual who's very involved in business marketing and analytics for my day job, I entirely understand very well the trust factors that are built through person-to-person interaction, the trust factors that are built and the ability to discern that is expanded through the observance, or excuse me, through the observation of body language, things of that nature. This was not a light decision on my end, and it's not a light decision for me to go ahead and bring that to the fore. I would like to stress that despite intense pressure from a number of individuals, both who have talked directly to me and many who have not talked to me at all, I have continued in my anonymity because I have felt it to be the best course of action. And I am shedding that particular anonymity because I believe it to be the best course of action. I do not respond to attacks on me simply because it provides no true benefit to any of you. Unity is the way forward. Coming together, setting certain differences aside, is the way forward. There is no other way. Until we as a civilization arrive at the point where we no longer feel the need to bicker, to control, or to arbitrate areas of our society in a contentious, adversarial way, we cannot progress as mankind. And so, with that in mind, one of the truisms that I have lived by for a long time is not my hand, but thy hand through me. And the fact that I'm here with each of you on the 11th of January, 2023, when 1 year ago I was looking into a very confusing, concerning sort of Biden wasteland, is a testament to that hand moving, um, and me being along for the ride, if you will. It has been an exciting time to get to know many of you. It has been an incredible time sharing information with each of you that um, some of which I had aggregated a very long time ago, and some of which is coming out sometimes, on the hour, um, in the present moment. And so, with that, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and close off this file with a note of encouragement for each of you. Do not go in fear, and do not succumb to that fearful temptation as we go through things in 2023 that are designed to repurpose and redesign our world. Do not allow the worldwide mafia, the controllers and handlers of this illegal Manchurian government, both in the United States and around the world, do not allow them the satisfaction of your fearfulness. Allow them to see the confidence with which you walk. Allow them to see the righteous indignation that burns behind your eyes and in your heart. Allow them to know, obviously without threatening, or maybe even without saying anything at all, allow them to know that we are coming for them without fear. We are coming for them as a confident army goes to destroy and annihilate its enemy. We will not be repressed anymore. We will not be held down. We will not have our spiritual bodies hijacked and neutered by the things that we have in our food and water, the information that we're taught in our doctrinal systems, the academic, intellectual information that is imparted to us in indoctrination and propaganda institutions. We will put up with it no longer. We will come out into the light. We will come out into the open. We will do so en masse, and we will overwhelm them. Stay strong, stay tight, keep your heads on a swivel and be prepared, but live in love and enjoy the time that you are living. Enjoy what you're able to see happening before you. You are witnessing the fall of the greatest evil this world has ever known, and the world on the other side will be paradise by comparison, in my assessment. Have a great evening, everyone. I'll be back with you again soon. By the end of this month, I'll be with you personally. Have a great night. This is SGAnon. Thanks. Bye-bye.